Hi. First of all, thank you for presumably buying this copy of Absentia on DVD. I'm Mike Flanagan, writer-director, and joining me on this commentary are our lead actresses, Katie Parker.
Hi.
And Courtney Bell.
Hi, this is Courtney.
Dave Levine.
Hi.
And the great Doug Jones.
Well, I don't know how great I am, but hi everybody, this is Doug.
All right, so this is going to be our cast commentary, and where we're going to hopefully just be talking a lot about what it was like to make the movie, and particularly from the point of view of the actors. There will be another commentary on this disc. That'll be more technical. That's the producer's commentary. So if you want to learn even more about this process, please check that out. But this film was shot in 15 days in June 2010.
15 days.
15 days.
That can't be right. That can't.
That's long.
I was there for one of them, so that's why. That's all I know.
Can we start maybe by talking about how each one of you guys came to the project?
Yeah.
Katie.
Okay. Well, I had met the lovely Courtney Bell.
Who we're seeing right now.
Who
Right,
we're
in her
watching
pregnant
today.
state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look at her.
Aren't you
post
pretty?
photos. I had met her and we were friends, and she had moved out here and had met Mike Flanagan, and the three of us were sort of struggling artists in LA, and we always talked about making a movie together. And Mike wrote this awesome script, and with our Kickstarter funding, it sort of developed into this actual movie with funding and locations and budgets and awesome actors, and I was lucky. Mike wrote an amazing role that I got to play, and that's kind of how I fell into it. He trusted me. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's really funny to go back and think about this process, because initially it was like, let's get together and do something on weekends that we can just shoot for free with the camera that we own at home. And maybe add like real material for all of us.
I'll hold the camera. We won't even really have a script. It'll just be like improv.
Yeah,
Oh
no
my God, I
lights.
remember
Yeah. And so there you just saw a shot of the tunnel, which is, Mike and me, Courtney, are a couple actually. So we are together and we live across from that tunnel. And Mike wanted to use that tunnel in a movie. Because we would take evening walks through that tunnel and be like, this is really a really cool setting for something scary. What can we do with it? And then and we did no dressing to this tunnel. This is what the tunnel really looks like, with the graffiti and the spider webs and all of this sort of unpleasantness. And it smells
The
kind
wet
of
floor.
Wet floor smells kind of like urine.
But you're using actual light too. You didn't set up lights. Am I right about that?
You're right about that. Yes.
For most of it,
in the tunnel, yeah.
Most of the entire film, right, was natural
Basically,
lighting.
the entire film. It's
Which
almost
is
entirely natural.
amazing when you watch this whole movie from start to finish, to see all of the lighting design that you thought was designed, which was just there, right?
And we can only take so much credit because the camera that we used actually does an amazing job with natural light.
Blends in whatever light it gets.
Yeah, the Canon 5D Mark II. We shot most of it on, and then we did some pickups on the 70 and the Rebel T2i. David Levine.
Yes, Mike Flanagan.
Yes. How did you get involved?
Well, it all began
You went the
in
southern
a-
route, the real
on
60s.
a couch
That sounds
in a
horrible.
house in Baltimore.
I don't think the kids want to hear this.
When a friend of mine showed me his film Still Life, that was Mr. James Sins, and who's in a few of Mike Flanagan's early work, and Mike came over and was just like, hey, what do you guys want to think? And that's when I met Mike, and then we kind of.
That was years ago.
That was years ago. That was
2001.
2001.
Yeah.
And we moved out to LA within a year of one another. We just kind of became pretty close, very close friends. And one day you called me up as I was getting ready to audition for my first pilot, and you're like, "Hey man, I'm thinking I'm gonna write a movie about you and Katie and Courtney." And I'm like, "That's great. I got a pilot audition. I'll call you tomorrow. Bye."
Yeah, I remember you were not terribly excited about it.
No, I was just. It wasn't. I wasn't excited about it. I was just. I was auditioning for Mike and Molly, and I thought, I've heard this show might make it if I get it. So.
Oh, okay. Billy Goat's Gruff
that's
cover
important.
art. That comes later, and that was designed by J.C. Crowell.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you look at it carefully, that Billy Goat's Gruff cover.
You sure you don't mind?
These.
That's
actually
talk
us.
about these? Yeah.
That's Photoshop, but that's what we actually looked like when we were kids.
Upsetting.
But the cover art, I was in charge of props for this movie. It was very independent, everyone wearing many hats. But I asked JC, the illustrator, I said, make the creepy tunnel that the troll sits in front of look like the architecture of the actual tunnel in the movie, and I think he caught it really,
It's
really
awesome.
beautiful.
No,
yeah.
that adds such a nice little element to this movie.
And then the 3 billy goats were kind of supposed to symbolize.
It's Trisha,
Yes.
Allie, and
Well, yeah, I mean, that's. But I mean, people.
Assuming people have already watched the actual
I don't
movie
think a
before
lot of
they
people.
come to watch the
I don't think a lot
commentary.
of people get that
I don't
necessarily
think
right
people do
away.
either.
So I think it's cool that we talk about that in the
Yeah.
commentary. That it really is a modern day telling of Billy Goat's Gruff, among other things.
Well, and that's actually the genesis of the script was my brother, who plays Doug's son Jamie in the movie.
Whose name is Jamie.
Whose name is
A lot like.
Who looks strikingly like me.
Yeah, that's one of those
And
amazing lucky
Jamie
actors.
was there before it wasn't like, it's just amazing how that
worked out. Yeah, that was. We lucked out. I mean, I know if there are other indie filmmakers watching this looking for some amazing advice for how to accomplish a movie on such a small budget, we lucked the hell out so many times.
So many
times.
The universe communicated.
Yeah, I mean, we really. I hope we can give you something of use, throughout this and the other commentary. But frankly, we really did luck out a lot. And that was one of them was Jamie and Doug. But Jamie, I talked to him on the phone, prepping for the project, and basically said, I have this camera, I've got these actors, I've got this tunnel, but I need a story. And that's usually not the way you go about these things.
The other way around usually.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards. And James put out the idea. He's like, oh well, Billy Goat's Gruff. We've got the tunnel. Use that instead of the bridge. And I don't know if he was completely serious, but I had that eureka moment. I hung up the phone and
started typing.
like he was like in the middle of a thought. So I was thinking about something quicker.
and I called him 2 days later, and I was like, it's done. I've outlined the whole movie. And he was just like, really? Are you serious? You're going to use that Billy Goat's Gruff thing? And I was like, yeah, it's going to be good.
I was just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was just passing the time. But yeah, so that's kind of where it came from, which was very backwards and very weird.
I wonder though how many times.
Why they make you wait
Well,
so long.
probably not very often, is it? I mean,
get it.
I just want. I mean, yeah. There's like they're very. I mean, I'm wondering how many instances there are of that type of how the story generates itself backwards.
Yeah. I don't know. It's certainly not a way I'd recommend working, and I don't plan on doing it again.
Why do you say that?
Well, what was beneficial about it was that I knew what I didn't have, so I never was tempted to write what I couldn't do.
We should
We should actually talk about the movie.
We should talk about the movie that's going on,
talk about it.
especially because in about 25 seconds or so, you're going to see Mike's cameo in the film.
Oh,
He'll be
yeah.
appearing in
Yeah.
just
So you
a
can
couple
pause,
minutes. Yeah,
right? That's important.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually, I had so much fun doing my cameo.
yeah.
It's on for like 15 frames.
But yeah, which you'll be about to see in
Oh,
a second.
Wait,
But,
I think I've seen this movie how many times? I've missed your cameo.
Oh
Where
yeah,
you-
well, he darkens
Well,
it a lot.
Mike is the one who zips up the body bag.
Oh,
Yeah, and you see him.
right.
You see him for a
That's
fraction
right.
of a second, but he enjoyed the hell out of zipping
Well,
Morgan
what-
up into
what-
the body bag.
What director doesn't want to zip his producer into a body bag?
Oh.
Especially, I mean, we shot it toward the end of the shoot.
Starts it.
Oh,
Yeah.
by
I
then.
want to give a shout out to Gabby Chavez.
Gabby
right
Chavez.
here.
She was our script coordinator, script supervisor.
Yes,
Sorry.
yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and wore many other
Oh,
hats.
where? Yeah, so
throughout.
many hats, and was able, had a little.
Couldn't tell me what he
moment
did for
there.
a living to keep me.
I'm sorry, I just have to say that's the scene between the
But then his
sisters.
cover got
Is, I love the
low,
lighting
so
with
we had to go underground.
the
But he still
warm
checks in.
tones of the
Tones, yeah.
fire. The lighting in this movie is freaking awesome.
So that was the first time we'd ever actually used the fireplace in the apartment.
Yeah, that was scary.
We didn't know how the flue was gonna work.
Oh, because this actually was your apartment,
Yeah.
and you had never used your own fireplace before.
No.
It's
We
Los
live in
Angeles.
Southern California. I remember when we thought
Oh, there's Mike Flanagan!
He's our director!
He's the guy that was zipping up.
That was very Hitchcockian.
It was
Yeah.
Hitchcock.
Very Peter Jackson.
Hitchcockian.
Hitchcockian.
Yeah, we Call me Kate.
One of the things I'd love to chat about,
Stare.
this for a lot of our lead actors, Doug excluded, of course, was one of their first feature films.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
this particular scene is the first night of filming.
Oh, really?
So it's
And everyone was very nervous,
Nervous,
yeah.
but pretending like they weren't nervous. And they were like, we got this. Holy crap, what are we doing?
Yeah, everybody was.
what are some of the challenges like for actors coming into
And okay.
a situation
And
like
hey,
this where
Fear of screwing up terribly and ruining the film.
Which I am working on. I will.
There's
find
that.
ways.
There's the fear of like wasting time because I mean we knew this was going to be a really short shoot
15
and
days.
yeah, I mean it was 15 days. We added an extra day. It was supposed to only be 14.
Wow.
And you know, sort of like if I don't get this right in the next couple of takes, what do we do? You know, the movie's going to be ruined. We can't extend. We can't. You know.
Also, like, I mean, I had only done plays and I had sort of done some films, but it was a lot of improv and just sort of fun stuff. And what really struck me was the intense concentration everybody has to have on the set, and also continuity, which I had never experienced
Yeah, it was a big
before.
lesson for
We
all
all
of
we
us.
all learned a lot on that.
Yeah, and
this
we
one.
really didn't have much rehearsal, so it was like pick your choices, find your beats, do the scene, and do it again.
Yeah,
exactly
and then
the
hold
same.
that lunchbox in the same exact hand, or the wine
Yeah,
glasses
the
with
wine
jump
glasses,
hands.
or those
and-
moving
yeah.
boxes. Yeah, those moving. Yeah,
And you girls with your long hair, behind the ear, in front of the ear.
all of that.
Right.
I was very lucky
As the
about
camera
that.
switches angles, you do have to. That's a different animal than a stage. You're right.
Yep.
And that happens a lot, right, with film actors. I hear it's changing a little bit. Like
Yeah.
continuity doesn't matter as much.
It depends
Or
on
do you think
who's
does?
editing it and what their style is.
I mean,
And
and that's
how
all
many, and how
technical.
many cameras are working
How
on
the
the
cameras,
yeah.
yeah.
But then there's also, the acting things like figuring out the emotional quality that you're looking for, having like you said the concentration,
Yeah.
really working off of the other person.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mike. I interrupted you.
no, not at all. No. No, this sequence was actually conceptualized before most of the script was. Right, with this particular
What we're
scale.
watching right here.
Yeah. And one of the really kind of interesting things that I remember about shooting this was that this effect coming up where you see him standing with his back
Oh, one of my
to the
favorite
camera.
moments, yes.
A lot of people like this moment.
they do.
And then when she touches his shoulder, suddenly he's facing camera, and it's a big jump, hopefully. But that wasn't planned. The thing was that we didn't realize until we actually tried to shoot it that him spinning around looked ridiculous.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Necessity
Yeah,
required.
initially he was
Yeah.
just going to turn around
He was
and
just
grab
gonna
me,
turn,
and
yeah.
it was like,
Sorta
that looks
silly.
That looks cheesy.
stupid.
Yeah.
But and in what is about to happen right now, he's facing away, and oh my
Ah.
god, he's facing me!
Low tech, incredibly low tech, and then
Yeah, very low tech.
Yet effective.
But effective, yes. Yes.
But yeah, that was one of those lucky accidents where, I mean, kind of when we realized it wasn't working, it didn't take long to come up with that. And once we came up with it, it really, like, everybody was pretty sure it would be a big scare. And it remains one of the biggest, I think. But yeah, that was certainly accidental.
That right there is Mike's college roommate, Natalie. She was out for a visit about a week before we started shooting. So it's one of the earliest shots of the movie before we
Yeah.
actually started our shoot.
Yeah, I shot that myself, actually, a few days before.
Yeah.
Another mark of good indie films is use your friends and family, right? It's
Right.
true.
Oh, yeah.
Friends and family.
and make sure you have actors who are fit
Well,
Oh my gosh, I know. How much running did you do in this
Lord.
thing,
Well,
Kate?
And a DP.
and a DP.
Oh, you had to run after you. That's right. That's right.
poor Rustin Cervini, he was
Rustin
our
Cervini,
DP,
yeah,
and
he's
I'd go
precious.
running, and I'm not in my prime in this movie. I ran some track in high school, and I was much faster. But anyway, Rustin would be holding the camera and running after me, and that's really difficult to do.
Yeah, he had a rig that was
He had a rig. He had to
weighted.
counterbalance it with weights, like 10-pound weight behind
And
him.
it was not an official Steadicam either.
No.
No, it's an improvised glide cam.
Yeah, was he on a
There you go.
skateboard for parts of this too?
And I remember before the scene, I went to Crafty and I got a bunch of red vines and I ate them. And then Mike was like, "Okay, we're gonna go shoot the scene." I was like, "Oh no!"
mistake.
Barf up red.
Yeah.
These pets are friends of ours submitted pictures of their pets to have
Aw,
to
yep.
That was one of the prizes from Kickstarter.
Right? Yeah.
Was you
right?
could
Get
submit
your dog's
to be,
picture.
Well,
Have you ever,
and the missing posters that are in the police station that you'll see later. Those are people who submitted.
And only people who live in LA have called us out on the fact that she runs from Glendale to the top of Griffith Park.
You're right.
She just ran like 42 miles.
Yeah.
Seriously. The LA Marathon isn't as long.
No one.
Or as uphill.
No one has to know.
Well, now we're coming up
But
to.
I want to, like, the color corrector got rid of a
Got
lot
rid
of
of the
smog,
smog.
which I think,
Yeah.
we should figure out how we can do that in real life.
In real life.
Yeah.
And here comes.
Here comes Mr. Doug Jones.
And
Wow.
it's no introduction.
Yeah, and let's talk about how did you get involved with the project, Doug?
Well, that we were mentioning our DP, Rustin
Cervini.
Cervini.
Yes, I can never say his name. He and I had done a Doritos commercial together not long before, and so I got an email from him saying that he had talked to you about this film, and would I have a look at the script? So I didn't know what had been talked about, how it had been talked about when I wasn't in the room, but once I read the script and saw how deliciously there I am.
I
Terrifying.
heard so many gasps when I see
I know.
People go.
It's a good audience goose moment every time.
An audience goose.
Have anything to
Yeah.
give you.
But if you notice how, before I go on about myself
yeah,
and how I
yeah.
got involved, the number of cuts you'll see here in this one scene, as Mike will tell you.
Oh yes.
This is probably the most different angled covered scene in the entire film. They had me for one day, and he thought, if we got him here, we're gonna shoot him from every imaginable.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll notice there's an edit just about every second or less.
Every
Here, look
second.
at this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you're saying.
You
It's
gotta do that when
yeah.
you're
It does create a certain uneasiness, I think.
I'll bring
to
something
have this
Oh,
many
yeah.
cuts. You did a lovely job.
And Mike told us, every single one of us, at the end of this, that your continuity was 100%, even to the finger right there.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Was 100% continuity.
Just to make us
Perfect.
feel bad
on
about how we
all
were
of
doing
those
it.
angles. You were the exact
really
same every
though,
time.
When you,
Thank you.
that day of filming was, especially for me, because I was lucky enough to get to act with you. Was just all the stories you had and all the help you gave me. I will remember it for the rest of my life.
I remember
was serious.
between takes in the tunnel, you and I sat and talked quite a bit, and we had a good time that day. Yeah. Oh, I know, but I was shocked when you mentioned this being the first film for most of the cast. Shocked to hear that because of the quality and the use of subtlety that everybody had found their own space so beautifully.
Really? Why?
We've all been to enough film festivals to see independent films that are first timers or whatever, and you can see someone acting out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah, watching.
And this movie has none of that. I'm quite proud of all of you. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry to continue. Well, there's Dave, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
This is your introduction.
Yay!
Yes. And
I'm gonna
he's
shower.
Dave the sweater.
Smelling
He's sweating right now. You can't see this, but so putting that jacket on probably killed
Yeah,
you.
I
didn't
know.
it?
When I put on the jacket, you can see the sweat stains. I was really hoping the color corrector could do something about that.
I know. But I ended up having reading the script, loving it, and then getting in touch with Mike Flanagan to let's have a coffee date. And for me, the process always is how's the whole story? Is it one I want to help tell? Is the character someone I want to play? And the third thing would be, is the director someone in whose hands I will be safe? So that's where the coffee date comes in, and we ended up talking for 3 hours
3
that
hours.
night,
Yeah.
and falling madly in love with each other, and coming away thinking, there. Well,
Oh, that's a good scare. Everyone gets scared there.
People like that scare.
but I came away wanting to be in every Mike Flanagan film after that. So that's why I.
Which will accommodate.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's interesting because you talk about the acting, and we're lovely to hear that. I think it's also a lot to do with Mike's. Mike has good taste.
Yes.
He's good to tell you, okay, this isn't probably the best way to do it. Try it, maybe this way. I mean, he's very good about guiding you in the right direction. Still making it your own, but
Definitely an actor's director sitting right here with us.
Yeah, well, and the great thing too about Mike is he's also an amazing editor, and he's been making his bread and butter doing that for years. And so he can tell you, I have the shot that I need,
Yeah.
or I don't.
Because he knows how it's going to cut
Yeah,
together.
because he knows in his head how it's going to cut together.
He's
beforehand.
editing in the camera, as they say.
Right.
No, I actually think that's the most important skill that a director
Is
could
editing.
have, is editing.
But
You can edit in your head.
it becomes very easy as an actor to sort of trust you with that. Where even if it's like, I feel like I totally fucked that up,
He knows how it's gonna
but
cut, yeah.
Mike's gonna make it look good.
Right.
I think
I
sometimes
think, I
it's-
think that's the first F-bomb of the commentary. Well
Way
done,
to go.
Courtney Bell.
hey,
Mother of
everyone.
one.
Oh, we haven't. You know what? We haven't actually said that yet. But this is my actual. I was actually pregnant while we were shooting this. I
That's
was
right.
about 6 months along.
Well, that actually accelerated the production schedule quite a bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's why
because
we went ahead and did it.
Mike had the idea to make this movie about a tunnel in about January, and then a month later it was like, I'm gonna get a little round if we make this movie this summer. And so
That
then
was written in.
and so that was written into this story
I love
of
that.
I can't
how
imagine
can
it
she
without it.
how
Yeah.
can
I
she
know.
be pregnant if her husband is missing? And
Levine.
Which is great. Oh,
and initially, one of the first ideas he had was,
Raises stakes.
what if he's only been missing for
A few
what
months.
if it's her husband's baby and he's missing, and that puts sort of an acceleration on it. But it became much more interesting because you literally can't declare someone dead for 7 years.
years,
That
so
reality is
One long
true.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh
right.
God.
I mean, the thing about what makes I feel like one of the things that makes this movie great is the dialogue that you as a viewer have in your head about what is really happening in this movie.
Yes.
So the fact that
Technically,
she's
usually
she's
waits
pregnant,
to
but
actually
she's
sign a
but it's
release
7
on it.
years ago that he
Okay,
disappeared.
I'm
I don't understand. And that's the best thing you can ask an audience because I don't understand what's going to happen next. Is the best thing you can ask a viewer.
Well, and I think too that like it makes our relationship with each other in the movie very complicated.
Awkward,
You
yeah.
know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
what do you do in that situation, and it's so much more interesting than just
We're in
you're the
love.
cop and you're helping me find
Yeah.
my husband who's I'm pregnant and I'm waiting for him to come home. You know,
Well,
like
because I'm a character.
yeah, and it gives you much more of a need to help me make sure
Yeah.
I'm safe, and
Because you're baby daddy.
Baby daddy.
That's right.
Yo, baby
So,
daddy.
and yeah, that was my favorite thing was figuring out like he was how this was a sort of a consummate professional who was just obviously made a mistake here but was still trying to be professional, and you can see by the end he's a terrible cop in this instance is made him a terrible cop because you're not supposed
He's
to make
definitely not a great cop.
You're not supposed to make it personal. I have a feeling though, in my mind though, I always figured he was a very good cop, and
Except
he slept like
a bit unprofessional.
His emotions got away from him.
the emotions. But
I always thought
that's
that I
human.
seduced you and you couldn't
Of course
say
you
no.
did.
Who resist that ginger hair? I know.
I'm sorry, this scene creeps me the
Oh,
heck out.
this creeped me out on
Morgan,
the page. It creeped me out,
Well, and it was. I mean, again, this is Mike, who is my.
Yeah, he's like, I get.
Flanagan.
You know what's
That
great?
is your baby!
What if she sticks his hand into her belly? That's.
That's awful.
And this
I-
is more proof to me that what you don't see can be more scary than what you do. And that's
Right.
what I loved about that movie and talking to Mike on that coffee date was.
Oh, okay. We gotta
gotta
give
introduce this guy.
props. This is Scott Graham.
God
Yes.
Graham.
Scott Graham starred in
the
my short
mirror.
film Oculus, and that's the mirror on the
the mirror
wall
from Oculus.
for
Ah.
Oculus. So that's a little for the
Thumbprint
10
of
people
yours.
that have seen that.
And I mean, I
that's a
know that
little.
we said we
That's a little.
something
Oculus
Little
did
treat.
very well at film festivals
It
and
is.
It's a
has a
great
good
film.
following.
It's a great film.
It's actually our next feature
This.
project. Is the feature version of that.
Scott came in and nailed this on the first take.
Scott does that.
He just
Yeah.
nailed that. I mean, it's a small scene, but he just nailed it.
Well, the thing that you're not seeing, and what we actually shot for hours that day, in a bunch of takes, more than almost probably the second highest amount of coverage, except for maybe Doug's scene. Mostly because Scott would just go on in these 10-minute improvised tirade.
The
Why
outtakes make it to
I'm
this
the
DVD.
worst
The worst psychiatrist.
ever.
At one point, he's talking about how much money he owes a bookie, and then
Yeah.
she says to him, "How does that make you feel?" He says something very insulting about Kobe Bryant.
Are you doing any deleted scenes or anything like that?
There will be deleted scenes. I don't know if those are going to make it, but
Good, keep going.
But
Oh
no,
yeah, I guess
Scotty's
we
pretty
don't
great.
get to
That
pick
was-
what scenes are going to wind up on the DVD, but
don't?
Scott's outtakes.
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I
Scott's
have that
outtakes are
power.
gonna yeah.
Guys, I
Worth
just
a
want
look.
to comment on the music because I love the music
Yeah.
in this scene
Yes.
and
Like he
how
was
much it
devastated.
influences the film.
Furious.
And that's Ryan, our composer,
Right.
who.
And how do we get Ryan again? I don't.
Well, this is interesting. There are several people involved with this movie that we found online.
Right.
And actually, I never had a conversation with Ryan until after his work was finished.
Yeah.
We
Interesting.
exchanged emails. I met him because he submitted for a different project, a documentary project I was working on, and I engaged him to work on it. I thought his sound was really interesting.
Wow.
And he emailed me a bunch of files. We did one cut of the film with a score he did that was very
Friday Night Lights.
very Friday Night Lights, kind of indie drama, which is gorgeous. But it turned out it was just inappropriate for this movie, and it kind of
Okay, well, when
it
will that
diffused a lot of the tension.
As opposed to adding to it. You
Right.
want the tension.
And about this scene, also, I think it's interesting. When you wrote this was. I believe you're cutting together 5 distinct scenes that you wrote.
That's true.
And you're cutting them together all in real time, and so that it all kind of happens. All 5.
Yeah,
scenes
on the
are happening.
page, the psychiatrist scene is one.
Yeah.
Jogging is
well,
one
that,
scene.
and that's how I'll
Yes.
write. Is that I'll write it as one chunk, knowing that I'll play with it as.
Oh, you knew that? Oh, okay.
Right.
There's some really non-linear stuff coming up. That
The trinkets. The trinkets were a character unto themselves,
Oh,
weren't
they
they?
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were always these gasps. I love that.
Yeah.
When I was
And
watching
Courtney
it.
got all the trinkets.
I did
eBay.
eBay.
Oh, really?
And every
Really?
single one of those is like an authentic antique something or other. And,
Really?
And
I
then
have
yeah,
some.
and then in the last couple of weeks before we did production, like Gabby and I aged them and distressed some of them.
They were fun to play
Thrown
with.
to the
Yeah.
ground.
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, a lot of watch faces. There's some spectacles in there,
Right.
brooches, necklaces,
And we're about to meet my son, Jamie.
and this is
Precious.
Flanagan.
Isn't he
James
precious?
Flanagan,
Don't you want to pick him up
younger
and toss him around?
Yeah.
There is going to be It's so funny because he does look creepier, but he's really one of the sweetest men.
Absolutely.
He's so good too.
And he's so good. Well, he's theater trained too, yes?
Yes,
Yeah,
but James
also.
is actually
in a bunch
he's a
of-
very successful theater actor in DC,
In
Yeah.
DC, that's right.
and he agreed
That's
to do
right,
this.
someone-
I mean, James and I made a movie in 5th grade, and James was in it. And when we were kids running around the yard with our VHS cameras, it's like Jamie was always he was my star, and I made 3 features before this, and he made a cameo appearance in one just as an extra. Had a pretty important scene in the second that was cut out completely.
because he plays a gangster, right? And
Yeah.
he's 105
He can't play a
pounds.
gangster, yeah.
You know,
The gun looked bigger than him.
Believe me, I blame myself. But yeah, so this was my chance to finally work with him, and he flew out to California
Yeah.
just for that.
And another
Such a
theater
treat.
actress
And
is this
this-
lovely
Elizabeth
woman.
Adwin?
Elizabeth.
Edwards.
Edwards.
Yeah, she was
Edwin
great too.
Edwards.
I didn't meet her. Who was she?
She's amazing. She's done a lot of work with the Utah Shakespeare Festival. Where else? She's done a lot of classical work.
And did one of you know her going
Yeah, I
in?
think Morgan.
Morgan.
Morgan,
And
okay.
Justin.
And this is actually the office space that we're using is from an attorney that we interviewed for our American Marriage documentary, who allowed us to use her office because it has a
See?
beautiful view.
See, using your friends and family. Come on, I'm just saying.
And this was a rough day, if I remember right.
Yes.
Should we go to Scott's?
This was the end of our first week, so we
Yeah.
hadn't had a day off yet, and we had been shooting nights for the entire week, and then on the
Here's the
very
day
last
shot.
day of
Yeah.
the week,
Yeah.
it was like everybody be here at 9 a.m.
We were all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, shooting nights was and a lot of people were like, why shoot nights? Why not do day for night? But the problem is because we weren't building lights and we couldn't, basically rig up anything on our windows without attracting attention to our apartment.
That you were not permitted to shoot in. Whatever.
Which of course we weren't. And it's just like, well, we're just gonna have to do this at night. Now this sequence actually I have a lot of love for.
Use of
Well,
toothbrushing.
I really, your gums
Oh,
are
the
receding
silverfish.
as we speak.
There's about 6 different
Most difficult
silverfish.
actor right there.
Yeah, you've just seen an entire family of silverfish in
I
this
brought
portion.
him, didn't I? I know I
You brought the
You brought
first
one of
silverfish.
them.
Maybe you didn't make it.
Every now and again, we find 1 or 2 in our apartment.
Well, one of the things about the silverfish, it was scripted to be the silverfish in the sink, and the trick with it was that even though you tend to see them a lot at my apartment on the walls, we couldn't find one in
was a
time to
drought,
shoot.
yeah.
And it turns out they're very
sag,
fragile.
obviously, and they knew
Well,
they were worse.
we talked to a bug
Let's
wrangler.
talk to
Oh,
the
bug wrangler, yeah.
And we were going to bring in a bug wrangler, but on our tiny budget, when it occurred to us that the silverfish would basically cost us more than, say, Doug Jones.
Yeah.
It was like not that Doug fleeced us financially by any means, but that he was going to be the highest paid person on the movie, the silverfish.
Oh, the face.
It was just not worth
This
it.
shower curtain, can I just say, by the way,
Yeah.
was terrifying. to me.
Scary.
Yeah, but because he comes back, the shower curtain.
He does.
Yeah.
But just that little poof of air that you played with a minute ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that?
No,
Yeah,
it-
well,
How
it's
did you do that?
also
Was someone
Josh-
back there blowing on it, or how did
Someone
you?
just tapped it
Was
with
that
their fingers.
Yeah, it was Justin. Justin did the fingers.
Justin did. Okay.
Yeah,
That was
and then
gorgeous. Gorgeous
when,
moment.
when you see it again,
Yeah.
that's me.
That's you. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Decided to have the
See,
pregnant lady.
everyone wore a lot
Do
of
all
hats.
the
You
hard
said.
stuff.
Yes.
Well, and you're right in that this and most shots that you see in the first 30 minutes of this movie have a twin in the second act.
You're right.
Like,
Right.
Everything's set up once.
Land
and
Set
paid
up and then you
off.
come back to
Yeah.
pay off. I love that. Yeah.
Even in this sequence, we've
Right
we've
here.
seen this once before, and
right,
nothing
right.
happened, and now something's going to happen.
I love this shot too.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with this scene.
It reminds me of a painting for some reason. It has like this really weird haunting feel that reminds me of like some kind of old painting. I know that's strange.
This
Like
is-
that.
yeah. Well,
It's
this-
the
Yeah.
images are just so.
This is one of those things where I was like, I think this is too long. I think this is too long. But when I saw it in an audience,
It's
I
people
got
hold
it.
their breath.
Yeah.
I got
that.
it. I totally got it.
No, I really wanted there to be long periods of silence.
What was Morgan saying here?
You're letting me die. You're killing me when you.
I know
forget
about
me.
the baby,
I
I
know
know
about
what
the
you
baby.
did.
I know what you did when you die. When you forget me, I die when you forget me. When you forget me, I am dead.
Yes.
Oh, and he was rapidly
Amen.
doing this
Yes.
over and over again.
Yep.
That was beautiful because we couldn't quite make it out, but like, oh,
I feel like you catch keywords.
you
in
do.
that.
You hear
Right.
a lot
I
of
died.
dead.
I was maybe a good die.
And did you pull the focus? Like that was. It looks
no,
like it was
that's a-
post production, but was it on the day?
No, that's post.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, that was that's actually just a basic garbage mat in Final Cut.
Oh,
for,
okay,
for all
okay.
you techies.
Okay.
Garbage.
Gotcha.
For all you dickies.
Yeah, and that was meant to be a temporary effect, just to be a placeholder, and we kept it.
Look beautiful.
Yeah.
No.
But this is
Totally.
like this is like great word, good acting and great taste, because I'm sure there's takes where Courtney's really smiling, but Mike chose the one where
God
it's
bless you,
like there's a
Steve.
there's a relief, but there's also an intense sadness to the
Yes.
smile.
Here's
That's-
another scene that's already happened.
Oh, and
where
by
she
the way, the
prays, turns off the lights, and
And then
kills
there's
her.
the trinkets.
But now it's
Yes,
different.
There's
yeah.
the trinkets.
Right. Yeah, it was a good setup because we're expecting what we saw earlier.
And that's something
That's
that
scary.
Yeah, he laid the pipe.
yeah, it's something that I think is really fun to do with horror movies in particular, is to do everything at least twice,
Yeah.
hopefully 3 times if you can.
Right.
There's
There's Justine.
There he is.
Justin Gordon, my
Yes.
partner.
Oh, here's a little piece of trivia. We have a 521 or whatever it is that the guy says into the.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's missing
It's a missing person.
person.
Oh, is that
It's
what-
called,
That's
comes
the
over
code.
there.
That's 521.
For all the cops everywhere who look at the rest of the movie and think those are the most unbelievable cops I've ever seen,
Yeah.
that 521 is for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, and this is interesting too, because this is another example where, throughout most of the movie, the actors had a take or two, with the exception of Doug's day, where he
Right.
had how many takes? We probably did 30 takes, because I just wouldn't stop.
Because through most of the movie, we all
Yeah.
had like only
I can't
time
remember what he said his
To do
name
one or
was.
two.
one or two takes, and that's
Nonsense
kind of how.
anyway.
But Dave's shot here was shot a week
was
later.
in my
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah.
That's great. Really wonderful.
We had done one version of it kind of before we had hit
Oh, of
But
this
it was
scene.
yeah.
We hadn't really figured out my
the character.
Yeah.
Well, and you were framed up against a different wall.
Yeah,
and it
you were
looked
framed
like-
kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
strange.
To go where?
Guys, my moment's coming up. I just wanted
Duck
to.
face?
Duck face?
Duck
Yeah.
face. See,
Oh my god.
your duck face.
I don't know why we call it that, but it's
Duck face.
Who calls
You'll
it
see.
duck? Who came up with duck
It's
face?
coming up.
Here it is.
There's a
Here we
funny
go.
moment here.
I
where
know
you-
that-
It's when
Duck
everyone.
Oh! But
Quack.
but that always gets a chuckle.
That
It
gets a
always
great chuckle. I don't think duck face. I think
Ducky.
I'm just gonna pretend I'm not here.
No, but it's
I think
actually,
that was my intention.
and that's right at about the half-hour point, which is a relief in the theater.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like people
No,
get a
no.
good little laugh.
I knew that.
Katie was good for a few chuckles for me when I'm watching this. Yes.
Oh yeah.
She's always good
we,
for a
we, we
laugh.
flew we
Yeah.
flew right by Armpit's asshole, which is always.
I'm hoping that
Armpit
catches
Castle.
on. Yeah.
Armpit's
Yeah,
asshole. I mean,
it's
I'm
right.
like, yeah.
I think it's something that people hear and they're
Jimmy
like, haha.
Kimmel and
And then a
Fallon
few
and
minutes
you
later,
think
they're
about
like,
it, like,
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You're actually picturing.
Wood smell.
Right, yeah, that's a terrible stench. Terrible stench. I want to just mention Drew Shirley, who was our AD.
Yes, first
Yes,
aid.
first
Yeah,
AD.
first AD. And
He'll be coming up. He's got a cameo.
he has a very small cameo, but
It's a little ways away.
it's a ways away. But I just want to, just because so many amazing people were a part of this process and the way they
Yeah.
put it together, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
And your first assistant director has to keep the show rolling along.
rolling.
And when
Yeah.
you have a 15-day schedule, you need him to be on his game, and he was.
He was.
Well, there were mornings.
And he wasn't a
came
jerk
in-
about it, which I think
Oh,
right.
So easy to be.
Nicest guy ever.
No, there were mornings he came in, and I'd give him shot list for the day and be like, we have 50 setups
Yeah.
to shoot today, and he would just look at me like, are you serious?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, and I was just like, well, we don't have lights, so
That's
we'll be
easier.
able to do them quickly.
The schedule was really the major force. He gave a sense of urgency to everything.
Yeah.
Hello?
Now this, we've been dancing around it a little bit.
The drug.
In the script is Callie's. Well, we should talk about our characters.
Oh, the
Yeah.
lunchbox.
Let's talk about Callie and her lunchbox.
Her lunchbox.
I found that lunchbox on eBay.
Well, for me, the joy of playing Callie was that she's sort of everything that I, Katie Parker, am afraid to be. She sort of just does things with no rules and no limits, and she's kind of like, I don't care. This is my life. And I'm more like, no, that's not what people would want me to do.
Yeah.
But the lunchbox, you mean like, what do I think about it?
Yeah.
Or, I think Callie has a big problem, and the way I played it in the movie was that she's a nice girl with a lot of secrets and likes to live her life that way, and sort of gets off more to the secret than the actual drug abuse. But I played it like that happened.
I love that sound.
I love that song is
Yes.
so good. But in terms of the actual drug use, like when we were doing those scenes, I wasn't playing it like I'm on drugs. I was playing it like, oh my gosh, this is happening. There's a freaking monster here. And
Yeah.
I also saw
I
you
don't know,
trying
I
to
wasn't
say
sure how
to
I
show I'm not on drugs, which is almost the best choice.
Right.
To have the drug, but to play against it, which is what you always do.
Yeah.
You try to act sober when you're on.
well, and
higher
it wasn't
drug.
about the drugs to Callie. It wasn't about doing drugs. It was
Right.
like
It's
about her
escape
sister and
yeah.
Right.
what was happening.
Some more,
Ooh, actually.
some fun trivia here.
Oh, yeah.
The apartment search whole montage that you're about to
Yes.
see. This right here is the first apartment Mike Flanagan ever lived in when he moved to LA.
Which
we were
by
22.
by freakish coincidence
It was
empty and showing.
And showing.
That's
On the
hilarious.
day, this because we did this long
Yeah,
after we
this is-
finished,
yeah.
and we just went to all the open houses we could.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And you took a camera.
I don't think
with
I
you?
knew that.
Yeah.
Did they
Yeah,
know you were
almost a
coming with
month
it?
Well,
That's
it's
all
a,
wrapped.
because
I stayed at
of
that
the
apartment.
Canons look like still cameras.
Right.
They thought we
Yeah.
were just taking pictures of the apartment.
To go.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, we had a
So
whole
we
plan to be
were
like,
shooting.
my sister's moving out here
Yeah.
in a couple months, and
Right,
I'm
that's
trying to find her
hilarious.
place. But no one stopped us. No one talked to us.
That one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was just kind of awesome that I lived in that apartment for 2.5 years. It was we shared it. It was 6 of us living.
And this kitchen you're looking at, the one that
Six
the
of them.
Yes apartment, that's your kitchen, is that right?
No. This is another vacant.
Oh, another
That was
vacant.
another
Okay,
vacant.
gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry.
And we drove around all day looking for apartments and
Yeah, Joe Wicker, one of our the location manager and one of the producers,
Who also
did a
wore a
whole
lot of hats.
yeah wore a lot of hats.
Joe Wicker.
But he did a whole scout of like what's showing in LA today.
Oh, right.
So he had like 5 apartments or like 5 addresses listed for us to go, so we could get a couple different.
We should also mention the back of the head of Joe Hollow right there, who was a co-producer here.
Oh yeah, he helped us out a lot. It was great
Sweet.
to have on set.
No, he's
He
a
is
ball
a-
of
he is
energy.
he's actually he does 3 or 4 movies a day. I think.
Yeah, it does
Okay,
seem
so
that way.
here's a scene right here. It's actually daylight outside, but the sun is setting. We had to do this we each got 1 take apiece. There's the camera on me, there's the camera on Katie.
Really?
And the scene used to be really long.
It's
That
like a
scene
5-minute scene.
was a long scene, and it had stuff about like, oh, Detective Mallory was always there for me.
That was the
and
backstory of
yeah, it was
her
the whole
and
like
detective.
back
Oh.
when Daniel went missing. He died for each one of my friends, and da-da-da. And Mike came in and yelled at us and was like, "This is taking too long," and we're losing the light. And we were both just kind of like, "Ah."
Yeah, they were both pretty mad at me.
But you know what? It worked without.
And it wound up being just so much of a better scene.
There's a lot of exposition. Like,
Because
you
you
got
get
rid of
it.
almost every exposition outside of the first scene.
I cut almost all of it out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I really like this scene.
because I have a scene coming up there.
I always like to write it. I like to know it.
Right.
But yeah, in this film in particular, it just made a lot of sense to cut it, and it's engaged the audience a lot more. People like
What
to
you
guess.
don't know is almost more important.
Yeah.
Well, it does. It keeps your audience actively involved.
Yeah, it keeps people having to do their own work of filling in the story.
And patting themselves on the back when they got it right.
Comic
Yeah.
books.
Comic book.
There's Drew Shirley's sunglasses. Gave to me a last second to add.
Oh.
Last second to add. I really feel like it was an important ad, Callie.
This was a tough scene too.
This was
Initially,
a
there was
tough
an entire stretch in this that talked about your character, Doug.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the whole backstory of the disappearance, because he had run the name that she
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Dave.
Um,
and about how it was a pet project of one of his partners.
Walter Lambert. He went missing.
He went missing and did
in 96 and was declared dead in 98.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
we took it out.
You know, at that point though, everyone was so tired. We had just been working our asses off
Yeah.
that it was almost like
Yeah,
everyone's brain
this scene right here was shot on the same day as that lawyer's office scene.
We called
yeah,
that-
the
we
last day
called that
before
the
our-
bad
our
day.
break. Yeah.
That was the bad.
That was the bad day.
There was some
That
yelling
was
that
we're
day.
halfway through. We decided
and
let's
it-
just order pizza and have some beer.
An interesting thing about this scene, we're fighting the sunset.
Oh,
We have two. This is one of the only scenes of the movie where we have an A and a B camera rolling. And we only got a take because the sun was setting and we were running around. So this is actually essentially one take.
No, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we didn't really know what we were supposed to be doing.
No.
Like,
Kinda-
it was kind of like,
Because
you
you didn't have
stand
time to
here,
block
you
it.
stand there,
Yeah.
and everyone, and just roll. And so
It wasn't like we were sitting around waiting for this light. We were doing a full day, and then we were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we have this light. Let's run over here. Let's get
Yeah.
this shot."
No, but
gotta get outside.
There was a lot of frantic. Now you walk here. Now you say this. Now just say it. We're rolling still, right? Just roll on everything. And the scene, luckily,
This is one of my favorite
Came out,
moments in the
yeah.
film, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
When Dave, when you stop with the handhold,
Yeah,
of
the
your hand
handhold.
not going on the walk
Right.
because you see him too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean
It's
everyone.
it's a great reveal.
It's such a
Love
great
that
reveal.
It's so great.
and this is A cameras pointing in one direction, B camera in the other. They're
Yeah.
practically tripping over each other.
Really.
But
You would never know.
Yeah.
and you just at the end.
And
You do, yeah. That's
in the
intense.
theater.
There's another intro we should make. One of our Kickstarter prizes when we were fundraising was a walk-on role in the film, and Dave Levine's very good friend Mark Dumansky,
High school.
who's actually a doctor,
Oh,
Yeah.
Dumansky.
Dr. Dumansky,
Plays the doctor.
plays the doctor.
Is that
Had-
right? I
He had a
didn't know
great
that.
time.
Oh,
Yes.
it was so much fun.
Yeah.
He was so happy. Like,
Yeah.
just to, and the thing was that you always get nervous when someone wins a speaking part because man, it can go bad.
Oh, there you go. Right.
And I was so happy not only with what he was doing. We added a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the whole
yeah.
description that he's about to give of all the ailments that,
yeah,
that
that was-
Daniel
that was added
suffering.
in?
That was
Well,
added in
the
on the-
medical.
on the
I mean,
day.
he was like, "Can you come up with some medical jargon of what could be wrong with him?"
Well, in that scene that you just
This is-
saw,
you
I
could
mean,
see me.
he's
That was-
really acting with Morgan there. Like he's
Yeah.
never had any acting experience.
And he underplays it. He didn't do the whole
It was natural.
let go of my hand.
Supernatural.
You know.
It was
Right.
so
But yeah,
So proud of Mark.
he wrote this scene for himself.
Well, he
at
gets
our
jargon.
request.
He knew what to say.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, how
that.
funny.
That's cool.
and nailed it.
I'm sorry. That's
And I love this sequence. It's
And let's
but
be
it's
honest,
purely accidental.
he's got Hollywood good.
Oh, it looks great.
I know, he's
He's
pretty.
got
He's
the
great.
blue eyes.
He's the
He's got the.
famous.
Yeah. Well, and those two
And there's
nurses
Mackenzie
right there.
Crosby right there.
And Mackenzie Crosby.
I'll call when you know you're flighted.
No, it seems like this to make you feel like you're making a movie where there's 12 extras and
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
hospital
yeah, yeah.
hallway.
In a
I was like,
location.
yeah.
Interesting thing about that, the set is actually on the other side of the wall is the police station.
Yeah.
That you'll
This
see.
looks
It's in
nothing
one
like
building,
a
yeah.
hospital. I don't know how we made it look like this, but just
all
a couple
one
of guys
stage,
doing
yeah.
some lights. But that's
I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
But yeah, it's like, and this was really exciting too because having extras on the set. I mean, there was such a skeleton crew so often.
And actually,
Yeah.
this is in this. Are you in this?
you know this is hard.
Holding the camera, Mike?
know.
Or no, in the police
Oh
station.
no, I'll get to that.
Yeah. Sorry, but our,
Alright,
We
we'll
were
get to
also
that.
on
Yeah.
a cool sound stage in Laguna Beach.
It was
Silver Dreams.
Silver Dreams.
Silver Dream
You're actually
Studios, and it was in Orange County.
Yeah.
Was it
Oh,
Laguna?
No, I thought it was.
I thought it
no,
was
it was
Laguna.
Newport.
It was-
No.
yeah, it was in Newport.
Yeah.
But they've moved now.
my bad.
Oh.
They didn't.
The only my big regret about the framing is this scene where it looks like Mark is actually eating Dave's head.
Wait, what?
Well,
We didn't know
you
Dave would be
well,
leaning forward.
I leaned forward the last second. We tried this and it hadn't worked, and I said, "Let's see, there it looks fine." It was just
There
that
it's fine.
one.
Yeah.
No one's eating anybody's head there.
It was the previous shot.
I look so freaked out. I've
Underneath
never
where,
noticed
Daniel?
that before. I was like, what?
Stay with me. Underneath where?
Yep. Pale Morgan.
Well, Morgan, I talk about subtly underplaying Morgan. I thought he was beautiful in this.
He's lovely.
Yes.
And yeah,
Actually, this is a funny bit of Morgan. When the script called for him, this was a topic of much discussion leading up to the shoot. The script called for him to wet his pants.
Yeah, I
As he got out
love
of the
this.
car.
Yes.
the first
Our costume designer got waterproof pants. roommates.
Yeah. Well, they were dockers, and she
Yeah.
didn't know that dockers.
So
were
we had this whole turkey baster tubing rigged
Oh,
to
yeah.
Rig.
and we were pouring water through his crotch and no
It ran
Just
down his
saying,
leg and
just
then never
a
shut.
wet ankle.
Never shut.
Yeah.
How funny.
I think beer too.
we ran out of water so we
beer.
used beer.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
We said it out loud.
We
but
had
that's
more
what
beer
happened.
than water.
For the coloring, I think.
Yeah.
It's,
Sure.
he's malnourished.
But we eventually got the
Come
pea
on, your
shot.
color.
I think weeks later. It was one of the last pickups we did. I shot the pea shot myself.
This over here is one of my favorite Morgan moments. Where I mean,
This right here?
because it's just such a. You've been away for 7 years, and finally, this first moment of familiarity.
Yeah.
Right.
And
How would you take that? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just nailed it, and I just love that.
No,
moment.
this particular
It's
scene,
so,
I really liked it too. There were a few more of these. There was one of him like standing in the closet looking at the laundry.
A
Making
lost,
eggs.
Yeah, there's him making me
a lost little
breakfast
boy
and-
thing.
If you go to the
him
menu
trying
of this
to-
DVD and select deleted scenes,
Yeah.
you'll be able to
Beautiful.
watch all sorts of stuff of Morgan reassimilating into his old life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Including an ill-fated sequence where he decides to make breakfast for Trisha.
Oh.
And the conceit was that he hadn't seen a refrigerator or real food in so long. So there's a moment where he
Stares into the fridge.
stares into the fridge.
I think the point is
Yeah.
the bed was all you needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
then he made the eggs, but he left the shells in.
Oh,
And that's a
precious.
scene. And it's sweet, except that we came to the point
The more-
where it was like the more you see him, the less mysterious it is.
Yeah.
And I had to make this really awkward call where I had to call a producer and say, I'm cutting
You.
a significant part of your performance out of the
Yeah.
movie. And the way I decided to pitch it was, you're the shark in Jaws. We've been talking about you the whole time, and now we've got you,
Yeah,
we've seen you.
Yeah.
What if the shark in Jaws made somebody eggs?
You talked to him at the hospital.
That's what you told him.
Yeah.
Swam up and made
But
yours.
he actually, he
Understood.
understood and actually took that like a
The thing
champ.
is, a shark would be very good about breaking it. Use his teeth.
Yeah.
Daniel?
But yeah, after that, it would be very good.
I feel like having that scene in there would make Daniel too real, though.
It did.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
It
Made
was
him
one
less
of those things
mysterious.
that made sense when we were talking about
And it slowed down the pace
but
of
it
the
just
whole
slowed
movie.
down the movie.
Yeah. I mean,
Because at this point, you're just wondering where the hell has he been and when's he going to say it? What's he going to say?
Right.
and the more time he has to sit
not
around
say it.
and contemplate him being back at home, the
How you
more
feeling, Daniel?
irritated you get with him for not sharing with you where he's been.
And
so
you're
it's
like,
sort of-
if he's mentally clear enough to make breakfast, he really should be talking.
He could be talking about
Yeah.
that. Right.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
Oh, the interrogation scene.
A funny story about this scene.
Why is everybody? I love
I
stories.
actually, I want to be clued on it too. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know much.
Well, something just happened while we were shooting this. You know, Justin and Dave are playing partners.
Well, in fairness, Mike, I want to stop, but you revved up this like, all right, this is going to be Dave and Justin's scene. They're going to totally nail this. This is going to take this to another level. We're going to see some real hardcore interrogation.
Well, but somewhere a Boston accent appeared.
in Justin. And this is the most like
Like
I
the
think this
Departed, that's why.
And the thing is that Dave absorbed the accent and took it to the next level. And
and
by the
just-
end,
and Dave went to De Niro.
it turned into The Departed, and it was just like, where you been?
Wait, we gotta
We
hear
got to
it.
roll it. Yeah.
7 years on the street.
And it got ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, I mean, none of that made it in.
Don't look at them, look at me.
Don't
look at me. Look at me.
Don't look at them, look at me.
Don't look at me. Don't. That's I mean, that's just a line in there, and I should have instead of just saying, "Don't look at them, look at me." I made this a little more. I just sunk my
Well,
teeth into it.
I remember the
Really
moment
being
where I
that tough.
tried to do my first edit of this scene, and I watched the rushes, and I went downstairs and poured a tall drink. And was terrified that we'd have to
You were really
ADR.
upset about it.
I had some meltdowns as an editor. Yeah.
Well, we had 15 days to shoot this.
I know, believe me. No,
yeah.
it's a miracle.
It
It's a
is.
miracle. I just.
And I mean, we had like 3 takes on that. I think that was
A movie that did not take place in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
No, Justin, and in fairness to him, had said, I remember
You haven't been to a hospital?
Justin and I never hospital. Yeah, Justin and I never had met prior to working on this project, but we wanted to create this partnership. So we had 2 dates, 2-man dates. We spent one night where we drank whiskey. And watched cop films, and another day where we went to a shooting gallery and we shot guns.
I'm glad you didn't mix the whiskey.
No,
with
I'm
the
glad we
shooting.
didn't either.
That's a great idea.
But we had talked. We were talking about our characters, and he had said to me, "I had 2 things I want to play with this. Is that I want. He's from the East Coast, but he's trying to hide his accent,
Right.
And that
He has a history of his own.
He has a drug history of his own. That's why he's chewing gum all the time.
Which I'm actually excited on the other commentary. We'll talk to Justin a bit about.
Oh, that's right.
Because he has a whole very interesting backstory for that character.
Yeah.
But
so the
but
Boston thing just came out all
it just-
too thick in that moment.
Well, that scene it came off the rails, and it's hysterical now. But it was that
Wasn't that
thing.
funny back then? I
No, well,
remember.
shooting it, I just knew we were out of time. We'd never get another chance, and it was just like, what are we going to do? But the thing is that each of you guys had your gold take.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing where it's like, it's in there somewhere.
So the scene that's about to happen between me and Morgan.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of one take wonders.
We did it in one take.
They had to.
Yeah, we had to.
You were the one take one.
And we called her One Take Bell.
Yeah, one take Bell. That's
It
right.
was one take Bell, a lot of it. But well, that's because I was pregnant, and I don't think anybody wanted to make me do anything more than once, and because I might
you
cry.
had crazy access to your emotions.
I did
You
cry
really
a lot,
did, but it
very
works.
easily, yeah. But this scene that happened right here, basically from here on, it's one take. This was being done at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Everyone was exhausted.
Yeah.
And what you don't see in the edit is that when Morgan comes up to hug me, he comes up very quickly, and his shoulder kind of comes into my face a little bit. And I didn't know it, but as he pulled away, he had given me a nosebleed. He'd given the pregnant woman a nosebleed. And I had bled all over his white shirt there.
Which meant we couldn't do another take.
Couldn't do another take because we didn't have another shirt. We didn't have another clean shirt.
We didn't have another
A
white
3-pack?
shirt.
They come in 3-packs.
Well,
I think we'd already burned
we had
2 of them.
V-necks, but we didn't have crew necks, and so it would have
It
been.
wouldn't have matched.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That was
But yeah,
a
we
moment of terror, though. When we saw
But yeah,
the
I mean,
blood
I
on
guess
the shirt.
from
Oh my
what I
goodness,
understand,
was
everyone
like,
was
did their water
downstairs.
break? What happened?
Everyone was downstairs at the monitor, ready to run upstairs. I didn't know, and kept the scene going. And at when someone yelled "cut," then I was like, "Oh, my nose is." So
There-
right
it was-
now,
it was there.
my nose is being shattered.
I think you can actually see some blood.
Really?
Just in the corner.
Everyone look.
Yeah.
Everyone
Let's
look.
look for the blood.
Oh, I don't see it.
And
Pull away.
Kind
Listen,
of
there's
too well.
all
Well
disappointed.
done. Well done. I never.
But yeah, and
Well, and
there
that
was
was
a
always
long,
written
there was
to
a long
be-
look
yeah.
or something afterwards that Mike just couldn't use because you're distracted by the blood on his
The blood
shirt
on
and the
his
fact that a pregnant woman just got smashed in the face, which happened a couple times while we were shooting this.
Well, this is actually fun. This car scene between Dave and Courtney.
Kissing a girl. The directors. I mean, I guess I can kind of understand what Leonardo DiCaprio,
With Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet, and Revolutionary Road. I feel like there's nothing more awkward than kissing
The director's
one of your
wife.
best friend's girlfriends who's
Who
directing
is
you.
pregnant?
who's pregnant with
And he's
the
like,
baby.
more tongue, Dave. No, he never said more
Yeah.
The
You just hold her line.
the other awkward part about shooting this was it was about 4 a.m. And
And this is an open air garage.
open
kind
air.
of
We're
thing.
not
Yeah.
permanent, of course.
Yeah, stealing this
And me and Rustin are sitting in the back of
You
two
guys
door
look so
salon.
cute together.
Rustin and I are more intimate than you guys.
Yeah.
Smashed in there. Oh, how funny.
Hey.
And well, I'm practically in his lap.
Oh yeah.
And Rustin's there shooting, and I'm staring at the eyepiece of his camera basically because I couldn't really see.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Dude, they were like inches away from each
Because
other.
right, there was no monitor, so you had to literally
Yeah, no
look in
monitor.
the viewfinder.
And sound is inside the
Inside.
apartment with the crew. And I was so nervous that somebody would come out and bust us.
Right.
Yeah, and there's one little key light on top of the
on top of the
on top of the
moonroof.
suit.
One
the
little, like
monitor,
3-inch LED light up there.
I have awesome makeup in the scene, thanks to Amy and Chris Mills.
Oh, yeah, they're
were
wonderful.
makeup
Amy and Chris
artists.
Mills, what a
Fantastic.
Yes.
treasure they were.
This scene was actually written before the rest of the script. This was one of the first
Oh.
Yeah.
first scenes that I ever kind of kicked around.
Kicked around. I think this was my favorite scene to film. It was really fun and kind of liberating because I felt like a badass in it, as you'll see when I try to confront this being in the bathroom. But I really liked that the way it was written. Like Callie was the one that was gonna.
What was the idea that she hears a noise but doesn't cower in fear or
Yeah,
hide behind
she's
anybody?
like
She's just
this
like, shut up, I'm
hardcore.
gonna check it out.
I'm gonna kill
Yeah.
you.
It's just because mostly you don't know any better.
Yeah.
Because if you really did know, you would have cowered.
Well, no, because when she
shrieked.
does know, she goes charging in at the end too.
Yeah.
That's true. You're right.
Um,
You're a tough.
I
She's
know.
a tough,
Callie's a
tough gal.
badass.
Yeah.
Tough broad.
She found herself.
Um,
And it's
This,
interesting too, like the way Morgan plays the scene too, where he's kind of like, no, it's in the walls. It's in, like
There's a
really-
reservation. I mean, he's
Yeah,
scared,
it's
but there's
cool.
like, ugh,
I can't.
He's used to it.
I
it's in
think.
the walls again.
I think that's a really terrific piece of writing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the. It's a scary thing to say. I can't go in there. It's in one of the
Now,
walls.
that
Yeah.
shot,
And you're like, what?
as the creature kind of crests and hits the table
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
shoulder there.
Be quiet, Danny.
Mark Sniffen did our visual effects. That's another person who I've never actually had a conversation with. He was recommended to me by a Facebook friend. I sent a Facebook message.
Facebook is amazing.
Facebook.
You kids and your technology.
We traded emails. I sent him a bunch of raw footage.
Yeah.
I said less is more. He did 30 effect shots for us, and that's actually my favorite one is when it bumps the table.
The bumps the thing. I mean,
And
that's your closest
And
look of what
what's
the creature
actually
is.
doing the bump?
Drew Shirley.
Drew Shirley.
The first aid
Shirley,
aid.
first aid.
A lot of our low tech scares are in this scene, including actually this one behind the curtain right now.
Well, we had this from the trailer. The first trailer. I don't know if that's going to be in the.
Which we used
It'll
for
be on there.
fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, we this is a movie that had a trailer before it had a script.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, in the trailer, the scare happened very quickly when we shot it. But when we went ahead and filmed this scene, it took a bunch of takes.
We did like 12 takes of this for that.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
But I mean,
I love
I
That's
heard
Courtney.
the last
That's
time
me.
in
That's
Sonoma
pregnant me.
International Film Festival, I heard a shriek.
People freaked out.
Oh, at that moment.
There was one take when we did that where I kept going forward and I fell over.
Oh,
Remember
that
one?
That was the
Pregnant woman
scariest
fell
part of
over,
this movie.
Yeah.
I was
I'd never seen Mike
off my
Flanagan
chair.
is
There were a
not
lot
the
of
most
things that went
athletic
wrong.
person in the world.
Like, I
but
got a bloody nose,
he would have outsprinted Carl Lewis to get to that bathroom at that point.
yeah.
But everything was fine. I just landed on my hands.
Mike maybe.
But
Guys, I really like this scene. I think he did so lovely in it.
I think it's great writing. I think this is one of the scenes where the writing helped the acting so much. You know, it made it so that you didn't have to work hard for it. And
Carl Aaron Sorkin hasn't watched.
Well, and this is our, we're teeing up our final scene here. Basically.
Right, and I'm wondering. That's what I was wondering. It's like, wow, it's good, but I wonder. I think people are just like so terrified. What's happening?
Well, the thing
next?
is, people want to know what's happened to Callie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing also, was we knew we could spend a couple minutes away from Callie to let people be really nervous for her, but not so long that people got pissed off.
In this quiet car scene.
I know.
Well, but you guys don't know what just happened inside.
Yeah.
I know.
That was what made this movie so. But it just because it totally wouldn't let you settle into anything. You couldn't get settled into getting scared all the time. You had, there was always something to.
There you go, making
misdirect
out
you.
with the
Making out with the
director's
director's girl.
I hated it.
Oh.
This scene was so scary to shoot. I was so like, what? This was another scene that was like
We did
1 or
one
2
take.
in the morning.
Yeah, well, no permit.
Yeah, well, I think we had a permit this day, but the permit was expired.
Permit
The
expired.
permit
Oh,
had
right.
expired.
Here you
Well,
come
and this
on.
is one of those things where I think Mike had told you, okay, Katie, you're gonna run, you're gonna get to the stop sign, and you're
We
gonna
had
stop
no
where
idea
to
what
cut.
we're doing.
I
And
wasn't
Katie
clear on
didn't
the
hear him.
direction.
Or and she just kept running and grabbed me,
And I like
Oh.
went for it and was like a crazy woman.
This.
And Courtney's legitimately confused.
Yeah,
She
she's
thought
like,
the
what
scene
should
was
I be
over.
doing
What are you doing?
I don't.
This was some great honesty, though, on film.
Yeah.
This-
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, because this is our the most operatic moment in the whole damn movie, and they nailed it.
No, and this is some of my favorite Katie work.
I love the
little
thing that you
push
do
in
with your
here.
eyes right here.
The push is actually in post.
Is that a post push? Because I thought that was brilliant.
That right there. I love it.
Push.
We completely stole this, hard noise cut to black thing from Lost, but it works.
Well, I'm sure Lost stole it from somebody.
Right.
With Fred German or
Okay, so here's some other effects that we can.
This is a leather jacket on someone's back. just
Really?
kind of-
I think that's Justin.
Justin.
Really?
Justin was wearing-
Justin's wearing a leather jacket and just.
Yeah. The hand was.
The hand is digital. But yeah, we called the monster for a long time. We called it Twiggy Jacket.
Twiggy jacket.
Because we used a leather coat and twigs.
from a
I'll
tree.
point those out. And this is another one where it's a shot of a girl running down the stairs and everything else is sound design. Which
And your imagination.
Scott McGuigan and
What you don't see is more terrifying.
Gypsy Sound
It's so much more terrifying.
did our sound design, which is really amazing.
Oh, we ruined this room.
We did. Used to be my living room.
That's
The ceiling
I love that.
effects.
That was when I realized this is really a movie. Because we were able to make the ceiling do that.
Oh, Morgan.
that creeps me out. It still creeps me out.
Morgan.
Took it like a champ.
He was
Well,
the
he got
victim.
beat up for
Yes,
an
he
entire night here, and took it smiling for the most part.
Yeah. No, and he did an amazing yoga pose to pull this last thing off.
This is, I believe,
Warrior
3.
Warrior 3.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Oh.
But he was
He's just doing
on.
that on his own.
Yeah.
Really?
He was on basically one haunch.
Yeah?
Now this is Morgan being dragged is Justin and Drew and I dragging him by his feet at
Down a cement walkway, yeah.
Yeah, we wrapped him in a rug.
Oh, you did?
Sure. But we did that after it was one of the post-shoot celebrations. We had a couple beers. And I was like, you know what I wish we had was a shot of Morgan being dragged. And it was like, well, the only way to get it is to drag him. And I was like, Morgan, have another beer. You know what I wish we had? And we talked him into it. Yeah.
Look me in the eyes real quick.
The scene is on my reel.
Oh,
You
is
can
it?
check it out on ActorsAccess.com.
Oh, nice. Look at you.
No, but I really like the scene.
In the background is
Justin's awesome.
Adriana Lombari, who did our costumes, is one of the cops there.
Pete Wiley is also in the background there. We got a lot of people.
Brian
And our
Norwell.
friend Brian
Brian
Normoyle.
Normoyle.
Another big stage actor.
Yeah, fine stage actor.
Actually, Peter too. I mean, it's amazing. We got some really great,
We had
well-trained
amazing
extras.
actors.
They didn't say a damn word.
Who are
but
our friends
yeah.
and came to help us out for a couple days.
I think MFAs and all sorts of different degrees going on. It was the luck.
Now the cop uniforms are actually a huge part of our budget.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And when we knew we had them, it was like, well, tonight we have cops, so we have to get these scenes. We don't have any time to do it any other way because we have to return the uniforms.
And they were all gorgeous-looking gentlemen. Who
yeah.
looked a lot like the hot cops.
Well, we called them the hot cops.
Yeah.
The hot
From Arrested
Yeah,
Development.
all of our cops are very attractive people.
Disproportionately attractive.
Are these more friends of yours too?
Yeah.
We're friends,
Yeah, all friends.
All just very good looking.
Yeah.
And who just came in? Who just like, yeah, man, we'll come out, hang out for a day, and just be extras. So
They were cool.
Very sweet.
very cool.
This scene that's about to happen is one that always is a sticking point in my little side because we shot me first. We shot this angle first, and you see there's cops standing behind me,
Right.
and then we shot Dave afterwards, and
No cops.
There's
Just
no
Justin.
cops, and we shot me, and the scene is what it is, and it works. But
We let the cops go.
And then they said, cops, you can go home because they don't need them. And then when Dave did his dialogue, I felt much more connected. I felt like I was giving a much better performance here
Malarkey.
when you see it's my back.
They throw you back.
And so then by the end of it, I was like, can I get another take in there? But they had let the cops go.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
I
oh
totally hear
man.
you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I
awesome
think
in
that's
this,
crazy because Stella, my wife, says, boy, always when she was a boy, Courtney really is a good crier. And always at that scene. So.
Well, speaking of another scene that actors
Yes.
aren't happy with.
Oh, this
Again,
scene.
this was about 3:30 in the morning. This is our real apartment, and we rent. This is not a standalone house, and so we're yelling.
Walls are very thin.
Well, Mike was like,
thin.
well, here's the moment we find out if we get thrown out of our apartment.
Right, and we had two takes.
We did two takes. In one of the takes, when I stormed off, I actually slammed my bedroom door behind me. We didn't use that in this film, but we did. That was the first take. I slammed the door, and then we were like, we need to go back and do it again. Don't slam the door.
Right.
Neighbors.
But yeah, we had to get this super fast. We didn't really get a chance to rehearse it, right?
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, you're crazy if you don't think that's an awesome scene, though.
No, I knew both the gals were not happy with it, but it was like, what are you gonna do? We didn't have time to do it again.
You know what? I don't know, but I fucking heard that giant bug story before. Last time they were under your skin, remember?
And this was important too, is to try to always have another explanation, kind of for everything.
For everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were very good about that because watching the film, yes, I love how it can go either way. You leave your audience guessing.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument. I think at one point we talked about it, where it's like there's a version of this movie where nothing supernatural is happening.
Right.
Totally.
I personally don't think that holds up with the finished movie. I think you have to say something.
Well, I think in the end we realize it's a real creature.
Yeah.
Because then the viewer is delusional.
Right.
Right.
But the ambiguity was always very important.
This was the last shot of the whole shoot.
Well, it was good
Yeah.
too.
This was the final shot of the movie.
Oh, it was a wrap after that?
That's right. Yeah,
That was
we
our
wrapped
wrap.
right after this.
We didn't say this before, but the little picture that's stuck in the cross there
Yeah.
is the sonogram. That's the actual sonogram of our son.
Is
Can you say his
it?
name?
Yep.
Yeah, Ricky.
Yep, that's Rigby's first movie
His
appearance.
first camera.
It won't be his last.
Won't be his last.
But
Hair continuity issues in this one.
What?
All around.
Really?
Well, hair
Okay.
hanging forward
Yeah.
and then hair tucked behind the ear when you go like that. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I would have never
Never
seen.
would've noticed,
Never would have
yeah.
noticed that.
See, this is when it's because when it's you,
It's
it's like
so
that's
funny.
all I see. That's
Right.
all I
Really,
see.
and that's only,
never caught
you
that.
only
I
look
I've never
at
seen it either.
Our commentary
Yeah.
tracks. Really,
Sorry, I just ruined the movie.
I know, yeah.
You've ruined the entire
You and your
Because
hair.
all I can remember of the scene is you not. I mean, nailing the. I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to tell this the mother that she went disappearing again.
Well, no, and there was a lot of concern on the script level about these scenes because we've had that big kind of monster moment, and then we go away for about 20 minutes for
Yeah.
character stuff, and there's no more scares, which in a horror movie you get nervous about.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot of this, Trisha dealing with the redisappearance and talking to the parents, and there was a sense that it could tip into melodrama.
Yeah.
Right.
And that it doesn't, I think, is entirely, to be credited to the
I
acting.
think I can make some sense out of it.
Courtney and Katie, and then we're about to
Walter
meet
Lambert.
The parents.
meet parents who are wonderful as well.
Missing in 1995 walking the
Zach
road.
Jeffries
Guess
is
which way.
one
But
here.
Ah.
the
Yeah.
still lives here apparently and says his dad was taken away.
This
by
was a
the
scene
monster.
that Katie and I
They
talk a
declared
lot
Walter dead
about,
in 2002. I ran into him just last week. Guess where?
and we only got 2 takes.
We did.
You know, he's not the only one. Not
This
even
this
close.
scene, I was
5 others
really
from this
anticipating
neighborhood
this
just
scene
in the
because it's
last
like
100
Callie's
years.
moment, and
Well, it's the
I mean,
longest speech of the whole movie.
But you figured it all out, and you're not being listened to. That was always frustrating.
You were Cassandra,
In a great way.
which was. I
in a
thought
great,
was cool.
yeah, that's
Oh, and
right.
this, just where that picture of me was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can we talk about that photo?
Sure. Let's talk about that.
I hate that picture.
We could have picked a better photo.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great photo.
It's somewhere in there. Yeah, it was a red carpet photo from something somewhere.
Oh, now I feel horrible.
I
Oh.
know. No, think about it.
Yeah.
Tunnel in the valley.
That's funny.
That's
No,
when
no.
you watch it,
Had
you're like,
no
oh,
idea.
God.
Oh, I hate my.
There's already two
What a
pictures
terrible
of
angle for
me that I
that
do
joke.
like.
The thing is, I remember your reaction when you first saw it, and you were like, "Oh." Now that makes a lot more sense. I thought you were happy.
I thought you were.
Oh, but that's.
You're incredibly photogenic.
That looked like Walter Lambert. It looked like a regular guy.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
All
That's
he
good
can
part.
say is that it's after him.
Oh, and that picture right there was your other college.
Zach Jeffries. Yeah, we
You
were
best
mates
friends.
for many years, and he was in
Oh, yeah?
all 3 of my previous features. And I would love to have had him on
Mind
this.
creates patterns.
He's an
and
East Coaster.
East Coast.
He's gonna be a
too,
daddy.
okay?
He is.
Awful things. They felt so real.
There are myths, legends,
Now,
folklore.
It's easier
coming
to
up
imagine
here,
the most horrifying fantasy
when
than to
Daniel's parents arrive,
Trisha, every culture in the history of our
who
species
are
has
played
had
by
mythology
Connie
about
Ventris
creatures
and
that spirit
Ian
people
Gregory.
away, that take them into
the
some
Ruth and
unreal
Mitch scene
underworld,
that
enslave
we had a
them,
really hard time
brutalize
casting.
them,
I think
and
Morgan
nightmare
actually
than to accept how
found them.
stupid
found them.
or how
knows them.
simple.
Well, and it's a tough
reality
part
is
to
Scandinavian
describe to an actor
mythical
because it's like,
legends.
I want you to come
Egyptian
over, I can send you the
insect,
script, but you don't have any
the
lines.
Wendigo.
Right.
There's a concept to all of this.
I want you guys to come over, and it's going to be this hugely
Finding-
emotional scene, except I don't have anything that you can read other than it's a hugely
Other than that,
emotional
your
scene.
son is gone.
And the problem was that, again, we had a limited amount of time, and there was the gardeners around.
Yep, I
with
was
leaf
gonna say
blowers.
that's the day. That was the day because we'd been shooting nights the previous week, and we didn't realize that on Tuesdays or whatever day it was, that's the day that the weed whacking happens right outside our window.
And we tried to wait it out, but it looked like it was going to go on forever.
Yeah.
And for them to get into that kind of intense emotional place is hard enough, especially with that kind of distraction. And then knowing that we couldn't use the audio made it impossible. And our sound guy, Richard Reagan, took up a collection of cash from the crew and ran outside to bribe the gardeners with cash to stop
I
working.
forgot about
I
Yeah.
never knew that.
Yeah, he was like
don't
40
think
bucks
I
for
knew
10
that.
minutes for them to stop.
Just so
And we did that for this scene at the door, and then they started up again.
well, we should talk about Richard.
Richard's
too.
amazing.
Richard's amazing.
But we finally got them into the living room for the crying, and it's this bit where they have to build up to it.
Yeah.
And they were.
And we talked about it quite a bit, and Courtney kind of started it.
Yeah, I mean, there's what you don't see in what that's happening. Right before this is that I went on this long, sort of
Improvised
thing that was
monologue.
like Daniel came home and then he left and I wasn't there and it's my fault and I'm so sorry. And it was like this
right.
whole like, you know, I was all breaking down and like the script supervisor was breaking down crying listening to me and it's this brilliant, I was so brilliant.
Well,
You can't
and
see
it was
Well,
all
that's
Yeah.
brilliant there.
but it was intended to be a silent scene, but to get there we had to do a 10-minute improvised workshop scene.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
And their
And we had to
relationship
bribe,
was beautiful.
we had to bribe all these people to let it happen. But yeah, Richard
I
would just
didn't know
run out
that.
with the cash, and the scene comes in, and they each get, I think, one close-up and the 2-shot at the end.
Yeah.
And I love it. And
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much in their faces, both
Yeah.
of them. And I mean, you know, you see Ruth, the mother, like, just heartbroken, and you see that the father has gone numb.
He just
I
got numb.
remember
Yeah.
when I was one of the proponents of get rid of them.
Yeah,
We don't
Dave
want
was
them.
get rid of
We
Ruth
don't
and
want
Mitch,
them in
yeah.
there. But I didn't know you were going to get those 2 actors to do that.
Yeah.
I was thought
They
we're
were-
no way we're going to get good actors. They're going to do. It's going to be bad. It's going to. But no, they nailed it.
now this scene is another one that was done on a total blitz. 2 cameras are rolling. We were, you know, losing the light. We had the cop cars with the extras, and we had Doug Jones crumpled up into a ball in front of the tunnel that he just did.
And a pregnant woman running.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Doug, you were
Well, and all
amazing
those-
the way you manipulated your body.
Well, I was.
Well, what Mike told me was that you have just been thrown out of the mouth of this tunnel, and you hit the pavement and rolled. So what does that look like? So I kind of
Yeah, and they're right there in the background was Amy Mills, our makeup artist.
Oh, yeah.
She's the one who made that blood splatter.
yes.
There.
Well, and you can see Doug's foot coming out almost by his chin, and people have actually been like, "Oh, that's an amazing use of a prosthetic foot." No, that's Doug
That's
Jones.
just Doug.
Freak of nature, Doug. I'm a contortionist.
Oh, no, here's if you want to know what Drew Shirley looks like in real life.
Oh.
Kind of scary.
You see him right at the end of the
that's
scene. He
right.
stands up.
And James coming up here too.
One take Flanagan.
James and I played off each other as father and son. You know, he helped me in the tunnel in my earlier scenes by hugging me between takes so I could have those moments where I'm talking about him, yelling after Katie.
Yeah.
And this one, he came up to me before he shot that scene just to have a look at me. He wanted to quietly look at me crumpled on the pavement. And then when he rolled in and it was all broken up here, I thought he did such a gorgeous job freaking out.
The horribly embarrassing admission I'll make about that is that we had been racing to get that scene finished, and I had completely forgotten that Jamie was supposed to appear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had called a cut and said we got the scene, and I saw him standing off on the street,
right.
and was like, "Oh my God, we haven't gotten the scene at all." And I was like, "No, keep rolling. We need Jamie to come up."
Yeah.
And which was the whole point of the scene.
And that was a one-take wonder too.
Yeah, and he just came up and did it.
I
Yeah.
cried.
I cry
the
watching it.
second, the second that sound came out of
Oh,
it.
here's a
talking about
scene
this
that,
scene?
yeah.
Now,
This scene was not in the original script. It was only when we realized that the location had an interrogation room. And
We just wanted to use it.
yeah.
Oh, and it's a cool look. Yeah.
Well, the other thing about this scene, this was the first thing we shot on the day that we shot the police station interiors, and our DP, who'd been working like crazy and had a toddler at home, on the first take, collapsed and vomited on the floor and fell over because he was really deathly ill.
He caught a flu from his
Yes.
son.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
And we didn't know what to do because he was unable to hold the camera. He was unable to sit up without
And
being
yet
sick.
this location was 50-some couple.
It cost a lot of money. We had it
Okay.
for a day. We didn't have any backup, and so I had to shoot it. And I shot everything in the police station myself, using his rig and the camera, which I'd never used before, and was horrified. And the thing that terrified me the most was that I was so distracted trying to figure out the camera, I had no time to work with the actors at all. And so the actors had to kind of do it on their own. Which,
They brought it.
well, we'll get to that toward the end of the movie. There's a lot I want to say about the last scene, but I mean, in this sequence in particular, and then in later scenes, in the main bullpen area, I don't remember kind of what. I don't think I had any conversations with you guys. I mean, I was just lugging around the camera and trying to figure out what to do. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And that camera was heavy.
it was.
And I remember you were in a lot of pain. I was thinking,
Yeah, I actually I messed up my back really bad, and I started talking nonsense. I remember toward the end.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of heavy
Speaking
breathing.
English.
I remember.
Yeah. Now here's another sequence that
I love this
Yeah.
scene. I think both of you are gorgeous and brilliant in this.
yeah.
I just want to say that out loud. Yes.
another one where they did it on the first take.
Really?
Yeah.
And you'll notice that the really emotional part of the scene is handled in this wide two-shot.
Wide
The
two-shot,
first
right.
thing we did, the master.
Because it all just kind of happened.
It just happened.
It didn't need a punch
Yeah.
in. It
What
didn't need a...
what was your direction on this? Did you tell them to do anything?
I don't think I gave him anything.
And the thing is, like, we
I
really
really
no,
don't.
no. You did. You said, do focus more on the exhaustion part than
Yeah.
don't play for sadness and
Yeah, never play for
Right,
sad.
right.
Yeah.
But we really never had rehearsals. We just had a lot of ideas from Mike, and then we'd kind of just give, have a whack at it.
Right.
And then he'd tell us what worked and what didn't.
What
Yeah,
worked in.
and thankfully Courtney and I have a strong relationship, and it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like our relationship.
Yeah, the
was always
sister thing was there from the
We were
get-go,
just-
Yeah.
watching it.
We love each other.
Katie Parker and Courtney
Oh,
Bell
yeah.
are like sisters.
Yeah.
Well, and
very sisterly like in
Yes.
every way.
Yeah.
Courtney, I think, lives with the emotions at the surface, but definitely while pregnant, had them there. And I think you just both played off of that so well.
No, and that's one of those things like, I gotta thank my son
Yeah.
for making it. I mean, really, like every time I was called upon to cry, I had probably just been crying 5 minutes before.
Anyway, yeah, right.
So
I
yeah,
call
I
that
made it
prep.
very.
Now, this idea of victim souls is something that my father actually talked to me about when I was a kid. He had just read a book that I think was called. I think it was called. I can't remember at all what it was called. But it was about near-death experiences, but people who have them that don't see a light, people that feel hell, essentially. And really dark stuff. But the book talked also about hauntings and poltergeists and things like that from a Catholic point of view. And the conclusion it came to was that there were people who were victim souls that God had kind of preordained to torment and allow demons and devils to torment in this life with a greater reward in heaven. And that concept terrified me as a child.
Yeah.
It terrifies me as an adult.
Oh, it's a scary, dark idea that you've just been kind of preordained to suffer and not just in the horrible ways that humans make each other suffer, but in some supernatural ways. It's really freaked me out.
Oh, no.
And for a while, we considered that as an alternate title to the film.
Right.
When the distributors were concerned that Absentia was a little too Latin.
Absentia.
People say it.
Absentia?
I think half the people who have presented it at festivals have mispronounced it.
Really?
So
It's a real word, yeah.
and that hug moment, Katie, you just did that. That was
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Well, because when your sister's crying, that's just a good actor instinct.
She was so good that I was like, I just want to touch you.
I know. Oh, that's a.
You're so good.
And then this bit was also one of the sequences that I had in mind way before I knew the whole story, was this kind of peering into the abyss moment.
This
For
is
Trisha.
scary. The realization of, oh no.
This is that moment where you're like, run, woman, run! That people want.
But she has no reason to run.
No.
Yeah. Only Callie
Only
does.
Callie
Yeah.
knows.
Trisha has no reason to.
And I love it.
Yeah, Trisha has no reason at all to be
Trisha's
concerned
like,
here.
what's that?
What?
Some stupid bug in our mouth?
You haven't been buying
Gotta
this
go
whole
get the
story the whole
raid.
time. Yeah, I know.
That's a beautiful shot.
That's my wife Lori's most scary shot right here.
Right
Looking
there.
at the dark. Yes,
Looking
living
into
room.
the dark.
And you look at it for such a
You do a long time. It's all right because you're waiting for what.
And
Well,
it's
when I was a
so
kid,
quiet.
when I was afraid to go into a dark space, I would stand still and stare into it.
Everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone
That's
does.
a really.
Like to feel it out.
Yeah.
That's scary.
And I think people, there's this paralyzing effect
Yeah.
that happens with total darkness.
I think so.
Those are those Kickstarter.
Yeah, all those missing
Were
persons.
Kickstarter people?
Yeah, they were
Aw.
Kickstarter people. That was their prize.
Thank you,
Yeah.
donors.
Great. Thank you so much.
One of them is my young cousin, actually, Mackenzie. But yeah, these are all scenes I barely remember because I
You were just
had to
busy
shoot
with
them.
the camera.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Mike, you were such a trooper when you were directing and you were the DP.
I was proud of that rack focus. I was pleased with that.
Yeah, that was, and you kind of just came up with that on the fly. And it was like, oh, that works.
Yeah, and this was all stuff like I like to shoot in really messy close up.
Can I also talk about this is a very small space, and both myself and Michael
more
are
time,
ex-smokers, just
Yeah.
dealing
with the cigarettes.
I didn't have to act at all anxious.
Well, that was
Are you a smoker at all?
I'm not. I hate smoking,
It's
but
tough to smoke on film.
You
It's
asked
when you're not-
to do that though.
But I really
Yeah.
believed that she would smoke
would.
because if she was an ex-addict, she would have some
Oh, they all
kind
smoke.
of fixation.
Yeah.
But I look so awkward smoking
you don't.
cigarettes.
No,
I think you look. I
Trust
think
me.
it looks great.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're all
that's
real.
good.
We would have told you. We're all
No, I
ex-smokers
think you
there.
look amazing in this scene. Like, there's just so much in your face, and you can kind
Okay,
of
and
like you can
that's-
read your lips. It's like I tried to get her. You can tell. You know exactly what you're saying.
Thank you,
So
Courtney.
this is
In
great
these
improv.
scenes where I'm being yanked, that's Drew, the first AD, and maybe Morgan, or
Yeah.
there's like 4 people holding my leg.
Yeah,
Like,
You're laying on an
so-
ottoman.
I'm laying
Right.
on. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
laying
with
on.
your pregnant belly.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We were so scared of.
Yep, well, I was gonna say miscarriage waiting to happen.
Courtney was like, whatever, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, I mean, you know,
Sorry,
you're
Riggs.
aware
Riggs,
of.
he's gonna watch this.
Sorry, Riggs. He's
Yeah.
fine.
I wondered
You're
how our
fine,
son got
kid.
downs. No, he doesn't.
Wow.
And there's our first off-color joke of the commentary. Only took an
Our
hour
son is
and 20
beautiful and
minutes.
healthy.
So
and
you
he's
did the
amazing.
first F-bomb and the first really inappropriate joke.
PC joke.
The mother of the
Yeah.
cast here.
Mother to us all.
See, I worry about the judgment though.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she did that while she was pregnant, and it's like our son is
you were
beautiful
fine.
and healthy.
Perfect.
Oh no, you were.
He's so
Well, the thing is, you're not moving at all. The camera's moving.
Yeah.
Everyone
I was
around
doing
you's
all the
moving. You're
movement,
not moving.
and I definitely did speak up when it was like, I can't do that. I cannot physically do that. You know, and anything I could do,
Before we get to the meat of it all.
This was another improv scene,
Really?
wasn't it?
Well, the first part was.
The
The
first
first telling
part.
the story
Yeah,
was
the
all.
first
You
part
telling the
was
story
all
was
improv.
improv.
But
Yeah.
this was the Charger.
This was cool.
So the guys rented a Charger
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
to be, I don't know. And but the thing was, because they rented this Charger, Justin really wanted to use the Charger, so we used it. This scene, I don't think was ever in the script. I mean, it's just
No.
they wanted to show the Charger.
It's a hot car.
It is a hot
Yeah.
car.
Oh, and it's
Stay close.
Yeah.
it's a cop car, man.
And you wanted to use more of it, but the neighbors that live across the street from us were sitting in their front yard watching us make the movie.
We had to frame them out. So yeah, they're just sitting there the whole time,
Yeah.
nonchalantly.
Kind.
We
Yeah.
call them the Klopex.
unkind.
Anyone from the 80s will get that.
Ah,
They were a little weird. They sat in their front yard watching.
The extensive tunnel troll research
Yes.
that includes Yahoo News, the LA Times.
Oh,
Well, and you you made a couple of those
Yeah.
articles.
it's
You
really just
photoshopped a lot of it.
it's really just a commentary on the lack of research that goes on in our generation.
Sure.
That's
Thank you,
what-
Dave. Now, the other thing too that we talk a little bit about with some of the audience Q&As are the faith issues in the movie. That Callie's very clearly Christian and Trisha's Buddhist. And kind of that, when you have siblings, I think it's very interesting when you have siblings that fall on different sides of that within a family. And we've got a bit of that in life. My parents are Catholic. I'm kind of Buddhist, atheist, and my brother is agnostic with a very strong kind of Catholic pull. And I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, I
Watching
think-
people deal with things differently.
Well, yeah, especially when people do, like, I saw one reviewer actually realize what causes this chain of events is a Christian act of goodness.
Because she gives the food
Yeah.
to the homeless man. What she thinks is the homeless man. She leaves the food. And
Right.
Yeah. Beginning of the end.
Interesting. Right.
The inciting incident, if you will.
This scene, man.
Oh.
Talk about it, please.
Oh. Well, here's another moment of what you don't see. Is it more terrifying than if you'd shown the visceral thing that goes on in this tunnel? That oh gosh.
Yeah.
The find at the end.
I remember you not being too happy when we were doing this stuff, Katie. It was toward the very end, right? With the
It
walks.
was towards the end, and actually, I'm not quite sure if this is the specific shot, but when we shot this scene, we had actually finished the day of shooting,
And we came
everyone
back
had
to do it.
kicked back, really. Yeah, and they're like, it's fine, you're just walking, and
Yeah, it
I
was one of
had.
those people are still awake. Let's go out and shoot Katie because we can
Let's
get
just do
another
this.
shot off.
Yeah, but nobody was really working anymore. I mean, some of us were, but it was kind of
When the
relaxed.
cameraman has a beer in his hands, as he holds the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could say that, but
You can say that.
okay, the alcohol was flowing, and and this scene was actually shot after we had done the rough day. Like this was after the rough day of shooting where everyone was
The
just
walk,
done.
not
Yeah,
the
Just
interior.
the walk, yeah.
The walk.
Just
This
the
is all
everything.
this is all
No,
from
this
a
is
week
all-
earlier.
Just the top models.
So the walk, but
stretch.
you know what's funny though?
That's right.
That's
The
what I
walk
call
works.
it, yeah.
The walk plays.
Yeah.
Because she looks frustrated
I was
and upset.
frustrated,
You
yeah.
did it right. Yeah, it's all good.
And then this in sequence in the
funny.
tunnel was shot on a totally
And
different
this,
day.
yeah, and it wasn't actually difficult to be afraid of this tunnel because it is really there's like a really
And it
scary
smells like
vibe.
urine and everything.
It's
No, yeah,
awful.
yeah, yeah.
We had
It's
Morgan's
awful.
fiance was scrubbing the 4-foot patch that Doug would be laying on with vinegar
Sanitizer
and
and-
sanitizer for
That was
hours
very
before he
sweet.
arrived.
That was so sweet.
Because it was like, hey, we've got Doug Jones.
I know.
Would you lay in this puddle of
I
urine?
believe,
And
I believe Justin and I also did a good deal of
Sprayed
work on that.
perfume.
Did you?
And, yeah.
Aw.
yeah.
It was a team effort. Everyone wore a lot of different hats on that.
You all took very good care of me. Wow.
That was just an amazing day for the
That
for the
was
cast
an
and crew.
amazing
We
day,
called it
yeah.
Doug Jones Day.
Doug
We
Jones
called it
Day.
the Doug Jones Day, yeah.
Well, we had twice the number of crew.
Yeah, all the
That day
most
than
We had
any other
amazing
day.
Yeah.
food. We
Yeah.
had
Great
awesome
food.
Yeah.
That was the one day we had good
One day we had
food.
a
The one day
caterer.
we ate.
Where we didn't get takeout.
We had a chef come in and prepare
Yes.
steaks.
Yeah, no, it was really
The
good.
smell of garlic in the air.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nothing but
Well-
Fritos for a week after that.
And it ended up being kind of silly because you're like the most humble, kind.
Oh, I would never have asked for that or
person,
required it,
like,
that's for
so
sure.
What I
nice.
found was you had filled our cup and really kind of energized us for the rest of the shoot.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, I want to be like Doug now for the rest of the shoot
Yeah.
and everything I do.
That's scary.
And by that you meant tall and skinny.
Top.
Especially me.
And again, another funny tidbit: you're about to see a prop come into view.
yeah.
And I had to gather all the props. So I, at 5.5 months pregnant, had to go to this weird, creepy shop in LA and pick up that laying there, which is an icky fetus
again-
that are.
Dead little fetus.
Yeah.
Fetus.
And for anyone who
But again, not seeing it clearly was perfect.
It was
Yeah,
on. It was
yeah.
on top of our crafts services table.
In a
It
jar
was,
of
in,
red
it was in a
vines.
jar of red vines
For
for
a while,
several
Yeah.
days.
People
With
put it
toothpicks in it or
between
what?
bread.
Well, and there are
Like,
people.
make
I mean, we should talk about that. There are people who
It was
watch.
awful.
There are
Like,
people
it
who.
was so awful.
There are people who watch this movie and they don't know what that is. They think,
Right.
oh, is that a hand? Is it a body part?
But I think
And
that's good.
Yeah,
Because
I
we
think
knew immediately, like, we could never show it in focus. We'd never show it close up.
That played for me the first time. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's also your taste. Again, when I'm talking about your taste, it's that there are some directors who would show that. They would show
Right.
the hand. They would show the umbilical cord.
The shoe shot.
The
Ooh.
shoe. I love the shoe shot.
The shoe shot is funny. in
For
and
the
of
record,
itself.
getting a shoe to bounce
Land.
out of a tunnel and land,
Just so.
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An army of
it wasn't
9
just a number of
different
takes.
gentlemen
Yeah.
tried to do this.
It
Over
became-
several different nights,
No,
too.
it became the running challenge of the shoe because every night after we'd wrap, we'd try to get the
One
shoe.
more shot of a shoe.
You know who
And
did
we'd
it?
try for about an hour.
You know who won? The director.
it was Mike.
That was my throw, but I
Really?
mean, we took hundreds of throws.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
All of us.
That's awesome.
And it either didn't land right or you could see someone's arm. I mean, it just never worked. But now this next little 4-minute sequence is, to me, it's my sentimental favorite stretch of the film.
the wrap up.
Why is that? Why do you like it the most?
Well, I feel like Dave Levine hit it out of the park.
He did.
And this is actually his first take, is what you're going to see here. He did it in one. And I was shooting it at the time and really nervous because I didn't get to work with him on this performance. That on top of having to operate the camera, that we'd have to go through who knows how many takes to get this right because it had to be just so for me. I mean, I wanted this to be really specific. And he just killed it.
No, just because.
And the thing about it is that it's the only time in the movie that you get to really sit back and kind of feel
Definitely.
the loss.
Whatever
And
it
it's
is.
a movie about loss.
Right.
And he feels it so
said it yourself.
completely that I think
It's not about speculating.
hopefully the audience is forced to.
It's about what we know.
And I love that you get that one image of him putting up a
We
missing
don't know.
poster on top of another missing
Yeah.
poster. It's just so unfair and heartbreaking.
Poetic.
I mean, we know
And
that
it's catharsis. I mean,
lives down the street from
you,
him and
without it,
exhibited
you
the
really need
typical
that
signs of a serial
moment
killer.
to just let you all
It's only
realize
over time
just
from
all the utter loss that's
animals
happened in this movie.
Well, and also to offer another explanation. I love
Right.
the hopeless kind of quality of speculating. What if they did run away? Because I do think, when this project kind of came about, it was when my family was dealing with a really intense kind of unexplainable loss, and the rationalization and the tendency to try to imagine any other scenario but what clearly happened. And that fleeting comfort it gave people, that was something I wanted to try to evoke here, and I think you do that very well, Dave. In the smiles, and then when the smiles kind of fall away. And my favorite beat coming up is that moment here where you look at all these other options and then you just say no. Not likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. We all want to believe that someone we loved passed away without feeling pain.
Yeah.
You know, we all want to hear that from a doctor, don't we?
True,
Right.
Absolutely.
It's that hope. It's hope and fear. It's
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, and then there's
Right there.
there is the nope.
Yeah.
That face.
Yeah.
Because he's still a cynic. He's still a skeptic. Because
Well, he's a realist.
He's a realist. He knows
Living off
the world.
baby in arms, happy and
but he's still letting. But then in the next breath, he's like,
credit cards, no vehicle.
he still allows the maybe,
Yeah.
because I can't think the worst of them.
Stranger things that happened.
But yeah, I mean, and this was stuff
Lost, people get found.
kind of on the page. It was jumping around so much and cutting to all these previous moments and all this other footage that it didn't seem to work. And so I was really relieved that it did in the edit. Now this is where the Twiggy part of Twiggy Jacket comes in.
Right.
I love this shot.
I love it.
It never even occurred to me
That's so icky. It's just
that
like,
my life was possibly in danger
Oh yeah. No, there's a
until
lot
I
of
watched
danger
it
there.
like with a live audience. Like, oh no, not him! And I was like, really?
Well, the script calls for this shot of her shoulder, and there's an inhuman hand on it.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, we were going to ask Doug to do that, but it became clear there was no way we'd have time on the day to add that. So those are two twigs we picked up off the ground 30 seconds before the shot.
Which
that
works
was Mike.
it's
brilliantly.
awesome.
That was
Yeah.
you going.
So amazing.
Yeah, I was puppeting them.
Yeah. And Twiggy Jacket is actually listed in the credits, I believe.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see.
But yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's
Thank you.
It's been my privilege to
guys.
work with this cast, and the movie was elevated by each one of you.
Well, and we should say too, we're about to see the credits of all the Kickstarter people. So there are 375 people who just donated money to this project through Kickstarter, and they all got a special.
And we should also mention it was Kickstarter with Facebook. We have to say we really scoured our entire social media to get kids.
to get our friends and their
I
friends
put
to.
a specific message to every person on my Facebook, and I gave all those different episodes. I mean,
Yeah.
they were so sick of it.
And people came through for us,
Yeah.
and this is what we got to make.
Thank
and
you,
so
people.
Thank you.
Gotta send
All
my
of our
cookies
Kickstarter
out.
people. Yeah,
They're coming out this week.
we still have to make that dinner.
Were these prizes on Kickstarter?
Prizes
Yeah,
on
right.
Kickstarter. Yeah, cookies, dinners.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Yay.